So I've just woken up and decided that today is going to be the day where I stop thinking I'm going to do something, planning, and just fucking do it. And I've been wanting to make a video for a really, really long time. Um, and my passion has kind of changed a little bit. I think the last time I made a video I was studying acting with Claire D, and now I'm living in Brisbane. I'm super passionate about activism, especially for animals, but just kind of social change in general. My main cause is veganism, um, and I'm also doing music, and those are my two passions. So I'm gonna keep up my music page, where I'll be putting out original content soon. Maybe even today I'll put up my first video in a while. And yeah, so I want to just have a quick, like a little backstory of what's led me here, fella. So yeah, we're studying with Claire, and I met my partner Dean, and in true Kira style, I just fell completely in love, and my whole life shifted to kind of go with that relationship. I dropped out of the course. I went travelling. We saved up together, and then we went travelling. We then saved up together and got a partnership visa, all the while living with my parents so that we could be saving money. So just kind of accidentally moved back north to Gold Coast, and then more recently to Brisbane. While we were in the process of saving to go travelling, I started getting a little bit more educated on some animal issues. I watched the trailer to Earthlings and was just heartbroken to see how awful it was. I mean, I'd always been a vegetarian, but I'd never really fully seen how horrific the industries were, and that was it for me. It was just like overnight vegan, never going back. And I was depressed for quite some time. Probably a month of just like depression, of just like, fuck, like there is never enough that I could do. Even being vegan is not enough. And at the time, I didn't really know about activism, and I didn't know that was an option. And I was about to go travelling, so, you know, veganism had to be enough at that point. And so I just I watched all the documentaries. I watched some great YouTube videos which were actually very inspirational, showing how much the movement is actually going forward and how much it has been going forward. And yeah, I did some research on travelling as a vegan, and I went through that whole experience. And it was really hard in some places, and I had some fuck ups where I accidentally consumed dairy, or the social pressure. Like, we were staying with a host family and they made us milk tea, and I was still very new to it, and it felt very awkward to say no to their tea. Like, I was rejecting them and their culture. And there was also an instance where we were staying with a family in Nepal, and they wanted to kill a chicken in our honour, and I felt very uncomfortable because it was a mark of friendship for them, but for me it was the animal's life, and I was like, fuck, if I was that animal, I would want someone to say something. But we were creating this amazing friendship, and I didn't want to like insult them, and it was a very complex situation, but that kind of happens when you're traveling. And I did find that. And again, while I was traveling, there was a lot of confronting things, seeing all of the stray dogs, seeing the poverty. And especially in India, it kind of broke me. And I had to leave Dean and come home early. He continued for another month on after me. And there was a lot of beauty, so maybe I'll make a video just on travelling, and go into more depth about that later. But yeah, ultimately I came home, And I was kind of just like lost for a really long time. I was lost, and I was hanging out with my old friends, but I didn't really relate to them anymore. And then I didn't have any friends, and then we were working up to save the visa. And it all felt really weird. I wasn't really invested in life. We weren't really doing music. We weren't doing anything that we loved. We were just working and making money and working and doing visa stuff. And then when we finally did pay for the visa and got that sorted and that was done, and I still was working for some time after that, just working 2 jobs. And we had some relationship trouble. There was a lot of stress in the relationship. Dean was feeling very constricted living at my parents' house where there's not a lot of access to public transport, or like he was just trapped on the mountain. And I was working, and so we ended up deciding that I was going to, cut back on hours a little bit, and we were going to focus a bit more on music. And there was a long journey there, but then we sort of created a duo together, Moody Sky, and started doing music together, and that was really exciting. We started doing recording. I got into electronic production, and I just totally found my passion for it again. And over the past few weeks, I've actually written quite a few songs. I've got an EP that I'm working on. I've had a lot of computer issues, so it's been really difficult to record, but I've at least been writing and practicing, and I'm really excited to go do some busking, so maybe I'll get some videos of that on my music page as well. But yeah, so that's kind of where I was getting with music. And then right before we moved to Melbourne, I went to a march, a protest, Women Against Dairy. And I heard all these people speak. I started watching all these activists online and seeing that people are actually doing shit. And then I went to a vigil, and I started going to AV, Anonymous for the Voiceless, Cube of Truth, and all these things. And I started meeting all these people that were so passionate about what I was passionate about changing the world, about trying to get people to go vegan, to alleviate some of the suffering that these animals are going through. And I was just getting really, really passionate about it. And then I watched a documentary. I might cry about this. I apologize. So yeah, I watched this documentary called Dominion. And Dominion is focused on the Australian the Australian animal industries, and all the ways in which we use and exploit animals here in Australia. So all the chickens for the eggs and flesh, and all the ways that we eat their flesh and secretions, and how we treat them to get that. Also, some animals that I weren't even aware of that we used, like the camels. I think it briefly touched on kangaroos and wildlife, and also animal testing. I mean, we in Australia are trying to minimise cosmetic testing, but the medical testing is still rampant. And the entertainment industry, all the dogs and the puppy farms and the horse races and SeaWorld and all of this. And there was a lot of stuff that I wasn't even aware of. And there was a lot of stuff that I was aware of that I didn't realise how brutal it was. And also just looking at the difference between these humane and these RSPCA approved and these organic practices, which ultimately mean so little for the animals. It's really just for humans to feel good about what they're doing. And watching this, I was so affected. And it's taken me a really long time to get passionate again, because I was feeling very misanthropic and feeling like just looking at people on the sidewalk and just being like, oh, everyone, you're just all cunts, you're all contributing to it. And ultimately it goes a lot deeper than the consumer. The consumer plays a part, but it is a very deeply woven system of lies and propaganda, and it's so much more complicated than that. It would be easy just to, you know, pick one person, but it's more than that. And I made friends with some lovely activists who have been so emotionally supportive, and one of them actually took me down to Sugarshine Farm, which was an incredible experience, hanging out with these animals and getting to know their personalities. And it was so beautiful to see all of these creatures that, you know, if they hadn't have been rescued, they would be probably on a dinner plate or, you know, exploited in some way or another. And here they are, just like all together, and they've all got such distinctive personalities in the way that they come up to you, because they're so friendly there at Sugarshine. And also the staff, I mean staff is probably the wrong word, but the people who live and work there are just so beautiful, and they give so much of their time, and they're all, you know, really struggling to get by and just giving everything that they have to make sure that just one more animal can have a good life. And yeah, it was really awesome supporting them, and that's something that I want to continue doing as much as I can. And yeah, so there's just so many different ways to do activism that I've been becoming aware of, and one of them that I feel is important is this, making videos about certain issues. So this is a particularly long video, just kind of on my backstory of how I found it, but ultimately this is now what this channel is going to be about, is me and what I'm doing. But because a massive part of what I'm doing is activism, it's going to be kind of focused on that and some of the big issues and my experiences with people. And so, like, the thing which kind of really made me want to make a video was I had this experience yesterday where I just kind of had a real moment as an activist, where I was getting my blood taken at the doctor's, and I mean, she was just making small conversation, but she saw my vegan tattoo and all the badges on my bag, and was like, oh, so you're vegan, that's interesting, what do you eat? And I totally just froze up. I was so focused on the fact that she was about to put a needle in my arm that I missed that. I just was like, oh, you know, just veggies and beans and shit, and sometimes some fake meats, and I just totally snubbed off the conversation. And afterwards I walked out, and when my mind was like clear again, I was like, fuck, I missed this opportunity to just like totally activism out and like give her a bunch of information, but I was like, I wasn't in activist mode. And I think that was kind of a bit of a lesson for me. It's like, well, when you're an activist, you should always be in activist mode. Anytime that veganism comes up, you gotta be ready. And, or you will end up fucking beating yourself up for just being an idiot. So yeah, that was something that I kind of had a bit of a realization about. And yeah, so I think that's kind of a nice long backstory of where I'm at and what I'm doing. And I will try to actually post videos as regularly as possible about different things. And